19 Black R&B legends who drank themselves to death. Fame promises joy, freedom, and immortality. But for many Black R&B legends, it delivered something far darker. Behind the roaring applause and blinding stage lights were lonely hotel rooms, silent pain, and bottles that never stayed closed. Alcohol wasn't just a party accessory, it became a daily escape, a quiet companion, and eventually a lethal enemy. Some drank to survive pressure, others to forget trauma. None believed it would end their lives. Tonight, Black Excellence Legends exposes the tragic truth behind 19 iconic artists whose brilliance was slowly erased by alcohol. Watch closely and tell us in the comments, was fame their blessing or their curse? Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole was born into music royalty, the beloved daughter of jazz legend Nat King Cole. Yet her journey proved far more complicated than fame suggested. With a voice that blended warmth, precision, and emotional depth, Natalie earned 9 Grammy Awards and sold over 30 million records worldwide. Songs like This Will Be, Miss You Like Crazy, and Unforgettable placed her firmly among the greatest R&B vocalists of her era. But behind the polished performances, Natalie fought a private battle that quietly shaped her fate. During the late 1970s and 1980s, the pressure of living up to a legendary surname, relentless touring, and industry expectations pushed her toward alcohol and drugs. Champagne, cocaine, and heroin became coping mechanisms rather than indulgences. Although Natalie later entered recovery and spoke openly about sobriety, years of substance abuse had already taken a severe toll on her body. Medical records confirm she contracted hepatitis C earlier in life, which led to progressive liver damage, kidney failure, and ultimately a kidney transplant in 2009. Despite health setbacks, Natalie staged an inspiring comeback. Her Unforgettable with Love album reintroduced her to a new generation and reaffirmed her artistry. Yet the physical damage could not be fully undone. Chronic alcohol use had weakened her cardiovascular system, compromised her immune response, and accelerated organ decline. By late 2015, she suffered from persistent fatigue, shortness of breath, and cardiac stress. On December 31, 2015, Natalie Cole died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles at the age of 65. The official cause of death was congestive heart failure, with underlying health complications rooted in decades of physical strain. She did not die in scandal or spectacle, but in quiet consequence. Natalie Cole's story is not one of moral failure, but of human vulnerability. Her life stands as a sobering reminder that even immense talent and second chances cannot always reverse the long shadow cast by addiction. Arthur Conley. Arthur Conley was one of the most electrifying soul voices of the 1960s, remembered most vividly for his explosive hit, Sweet Soul Music. Born into a modest Southern background, Conley rose rapidly during an era when soul music was both cultural expression and survival. His voice carried joy, defiance, and urgency, earning him international recognition and a permanent place in American music history. Yet fame came fast, and stability did not follow. As Conley's touring schedule intensified, alcohol became a constant presence in his professional life. Backstage celebrations, long nights after performances, and the pressure to remain relevant in a competitive industry quietly normalized heavy drinking. What began as social indulgence slowly turned into a daily habit that followed him from the United States to Europe. In the late stages of his life, Conley relocated to the Netherlands, seeking peace and distance from the pressures of American show business. However, relocation did not erase decades of physical damage. Medical records and accounts confirm that he battled colon cancer in his final years. While cancer was the direct cause of death, chronic alcohol consumption is widely acknowledged by medical research as a significant risk factor for gastrointestinal deterioration and long-term cellular damage. As his health declined, Conley endured increasing pain, weight loss, and fatigue. The vibrant performer who once commanded festival stages faced his final days in quiet isolation, far removed from applause and spotlights. On November 17, 2003, Arthur Conley passed away at the age of 57, leaving behind a legacy far larger than his short life. His story is not one of scandal, but of vulnerability. Arthur Conley represents a generation of Black artists whose talent built the industry, while personal well-being was often neglected. Alcohol did not claim him in a single night, but its cumulative impact shadowed his decline. His life stands as a reminder that survival in the music world required more than talent. It demanded protection few artists were ever given. Grover Washington Jr. Grover Washington Jr. was a defining architect of smooth jazz, a master saxophonist whose sound bridged jazz, soul, and R&B with unmatched elegance. Tracks like Just the Two of Us and Mr. Magic became global staples, making his music synonymous with sophistication, calm, and emotional depth. Unlike many of his peers, Grover maintained a disciplined professional image. Yet behind that calm exterior existed years of physical strain. Touring schedules were relentless, performances were frequent, and the expectation to remain creatively consistent placed enormous pressure on his health. Wine and alcohol became part of his post-performance routine, often framed as relaxation rather than excess. Medical evidence suggests that long-term alcohol consumption can elevate blood pressure, weaken blood vessels, and increase stroke risk, especially when paired with chronic stress. In Grover's case, there were no public scandals or visible collapses. His health deterioration was silent. On December 17, 1999, Grover Washington Jr. collapsed suddenly in a television studio green room after completing a performance for a CBS broadcast. Emergency responders rushed him to St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital in New York, but the damage was catastrophic. He suffered a massive stroke that deprived his brain of oxygen. He was pronounced dead later that evening at the age of 56. His death stunned the music world because it contradicted expectations. He was productive, active, and widely admired. Yet his passing exposed an uncomfortable truth. Alcohol-related cardiovascular damage does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly. Grover Washington Jr.'s legacy remains untarnished musically, but his death underscores how moderate habits, sustained over decades, can still carry irreversible consequences. His story is not about recklessness. It is about endurance pushed beyond biological limits. A gentle sound, a powerful influence, and a life ended too soon by a system that rarely pauses for the well-being of its artists. Wilson Pickett. Wilson Pickett was raw power personified. Known as the Wicked Pickett, his voice tore through speakers with primal intensity, defining Southern soul through classics like In the Midnight Hour and Land of 1,000 Dances. His performances were explosive, fueled by emotion, grit, and unmatched vocal force. That same intensity defined his personal life. Pickett lived fast, toured relentlessly, and immersed himself in a nightlife culture where alcohol was inseparable from celebration. Over the years, drinking became routine rather than occasional. Combined with an already demanding physical performance style, the strain on his cardiovascular system intensified with age. Medical records confirm that Pickett suffered from heart disease, a condition strongly aggravated by long-term alcohol consumption, poor diet, and chronic stress. Elevated cholesterol, arterial damage, and irregular heart rhythms were silently eroding his health. Still, like many performers of his era, he continued working despite warning signs. On January 19, 2006, Wilson Pickett collapsed at his home in Virginia after experiencing severe chest pain. Paramedics transported him to Reston Hospital Center, but efforts to revive him failed. He died from a massive heart attack at the age of 64. Pickett's death was not sudden in cause, but sudden in impact. His voice represented freedom and movement, yet his body paid the price of decades lived at full throttle. Alcohol did not define his career, but it undeniably contributed to the physical decline that ended it. Wilson Pickett's legacy remains monumental, but his story reflects a broader reality. For many soul legends, survival was sacrificed to sustain performance. His life serves as a cautionary echo from an era where endurance was demanded, but protection was never provided. O.V. Wright. O.V. Wright was one of the most emotionally raw soul singers of the late 1960s and 1970s, a voice that carried pain, longing, and unfiltered truth. Signed to High Records in Memphis, the same label that launched Al Green, Wright possessed a gospel-trained vocal power that could turn heartbreak into something almost sacred. Songs like 8 Men, 4 Women, and A Nickel and a Nail weren't just records, they were confessions soaked in lived suffering. But behind the microphone, Wright was fighting demons that music alone could not silence. Constant touring, financial instability, and the emotional weight of reliving pain night after night pushed him toward alcohol as relief. What began as a way to unwind after performances slowly became a daily necessity. Cognac and hard liquor followed him from dressing rooms to hotel beds, gradually weakening his heart and nervous system. Drugs entered the picture not as recreation, but as survival tools in a punishing industry that offered little protection for vulnerable artists. By the late 1970s, Wright's body was showing the consequences. His blood pressure was dangerously high, his heart strained, and exhaustion became constant. On November 16, 1980, he collapsed with severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. Doctors fought to stabilize him, but the damage had already accumulated over years. His heart, worn down by alcohol, stress, and chemical abuse, finally failed. O.V. Wright died at just 41 years old. His death was not sudden in origin. It was the endpoint of a long, invisible erosion. Unlike scandals or violent endings, his passing reflected a quieter tragedy, an artist consumed slowly by habits normalized in show business. Today, O.V. Wright is remembered not for excess, but for emotional honesty. His story stands as a warning that talent does not protect the body, and that alcohol, when used to numb pain, eventually becomes the pain itself. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was one of the most electrifying performers in American music history. Known as Mr. Excitement, his athletic stage presence, vocal agility, and emotional delivery laid the groundwork for future legends, including Michael Jackson. Hits like Lonely Teardrops and Higher and Higher made him a household name, but the relentless pace of fame hid a dangerous reality. Wilson lived fast in an era where excess was not only tolerated, but expected. Endless performances, late-night parties, and constant pressure to remain spectacular pushed him toward alcohol and stimulants. Drinking became routine, not indulgence. Over time, his cardiovascular system weakened. High blood pressure, exhaustion, and chemical strain quietly undermined his health while crowds continued cheering. On September 29, 1975, during a live performance in New Jersey, tragedy struck in front of thousands. Jackie Wilson collapsed on stage after suffering a massive heart attack. Years of alcohol and drug use had damaged his heart beyond resilience. Oxygen deprivation caused severe brain injury, and he slipped into a deep coma. Unlike many sudden deaths, Wilson did not pass quickly. He remained in a vegetative state for nearly 9 years. Confined to hospital beds and nursing care, the man once known for explosive movement never regained consciousness. Machines kept him alive, but the artist the world loved was gone. On January 21, 1984, Jackie Wilson finally died, ending nearly a decade of silent suffering. His story is uniquely haunting because it exposes a slow death after public collapse. Alcohol did not kill him in a single moment. It weakened him until one moment shattered everything. Jackie Wilson's legacy remains monumental, but his fate serves as a powerful reminder that applause cannot reverse physical damage, and that a lifestyle celebrated on stage can become lethal off it. Otis Blackwell. Otis Blackwell was one of the most influential songwriters in American music, though his face was rarely known. He penned era-defining hits such as Great Balls of Fire, Breathless, and Don't Be Cruel, shaping the sound of rock and roll and soul through others' voices. His genius was quiet, disciplined, and deeply internal, but it came at a cost. Unlike performers, Blackwell worked in isolation. Writing sessions were long and intense, driven by perfectionism and pressure to deliver hits. Alcohol became his creative companion, especially bourbon, which he believed loosened ideas and eased mental strain. What began as an occasional aid slowly turned habitual. Over decades, the constant drinking damaged his blood vessels, raised his blood pressure, and weakened his neurological stability. On May 6, 2002, Blackwell collapsed at home after suffering a severe stroke. He was rushed to hospital, but the damage was catastrophic. His brain had been deprived of oxygen, leaving him unable to speak or function independently. Though he survived the initial event, he never recovered. Years of vascular damage linked to alcohol abuse had made the stroke inevitable. Otis Blackwell died later that year, ending the life of a man whose words had fueled generations of music. His passing lacked spectacle, but its meaning was profound. He was not destroyed by fame, scandal, or violence, but by a slow, normalized dependence that many considered harmless. Today, Blackwell's legacy lives through the voices he empowered. His death underscores a sobering truth. Even brilliance behind the scenes is not immune to the silent damage of alcohol, and creativity cannot outpace biology forever. Little Milton. Little Milton was one of the most respected blues and soul artists to ever emerge from Memphis, a city that shaped American music history. Known for his smooth yet powerful vocals and timeless songs like The Blues Is All Right, Milton carried emotional depth that resonated deeply with working-class audiences. His music spoke of endurance, heartbreak, and survival, ironically mirroring the private battles he faced off stage. Behind decades of successful touring and recording, alcohol slowly embedded itself into his daily routine. What began as post-performance relaxation evolved into a habitual dependence that quietly weakened his body. For years, Milton drank heavily after shows, often late into the night, rarely allowing his cardiovascular system to recover. Medical research is clear. Long-term alcohol use damages blood vessels, elevates blood pressure, and significantly increases stroke risk. On July 27, 2005, Little Milton suffered a severe stroke at his home. He was rushed to Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, where he fell into a coma. Despite intensive medical care, the damage was extensive. A second stroke followed days later, devastating his already fragile system. On August 4, 2005, his heart stopped, ending a legendary career not through sudden accident, but through years of accumulated harm. Milton's passing was not the result of one reckless night, but the consequence of long-term alcohol exposure, a reality often overlooked in celebrity narratives. He was 71 years old, an age where wisdom and legacy should have been celebrated, not mourned. His death stands as a quiet but powerful reminder. Alcohol does not always kill dramatically. Sometimes it erodes life patiently until the body simply cannot endure anymore. Rufus Thomas. Rufus Thomas was more than a performer. He was the heartbeat of Memphis soul and funk. With infectious energy, humorous stage presence, and classics like Walking the Dog, Thomas became a cultural icon whose influence stretched across generations. Even into his later years, he remained active, charismatic, and seemingly unstoppable. Yet behind the joyful exterior was a lifestyle built around constant celebration. Alcohol followed Rufus Thomas everywhere, after shows, backstage, at social gatherings, and during late-night studio sessions. Unlike sudden overdoses, alcohol's danger lies in repetition. Decades of consistent drinking placed enormous strain on his cardiovascular system, weakening the heart muscle gradually but relentlessly. By early 2001, warning signs became impossible to ignore. Thomas experienced chronic fatigue, shortness of breath, and chest discomfort. Doctors confirmed his heart was failing, a condition strongly associated with prolonged alcohol consumption. Despite treatment, the damage was irreversible. On December 15, 2001, Rufus Thomas died from heart failure at St. Francis Hospital in Memphis. He was 84 years old, an impressive lifespan, yet his death was not merely due to age. Physicians acknowledged that alcohol had significantly compromised his heart's ability to function. His passing illustrates a sobering truth. Longevity does not erase the consequences of harmful habits. Rufus Thomas lived vibrantly, but his heart carried the weight of decades of excess. His legacy remains joyful, but his ending reminds us that even legends are biologically fragile. Alcohol did not silence Rufus Thomas overnight. It dismantled him quietly, year by year, beat by beat. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday, known forever as Lady Day, remains one of the most influential voices in jazz history. Her music transcended entertainment, confronting racism, trauma, and injustice at a time when Black artists faced relentless oppression. Songs like Strange Fruit were not just performances, they were acts of resistance. However, Holiday's personal life was shaped by abuse, discrimination, and profound loneliness. Alcohol became her refuge, a means to numb emotional pain when society offered little protection. Over years of heavy drinking, her liver deteriorated, leading to severe cirrhosis, an irreversible condition widely linked to chronic alcohol use. In July 1959, Billie Holiday was admitted to Metropolitan Hospital in New York, suffering from extreme abdominal swelling, fluid retention, and organ failure. Her liver could no longer filter toxins, causing fluid to flood her lungs. Breathing became laborious, and her body weakened rapidly. Shockingly, despite her fragile condition, police guarded her hospital bed over alleged drug possession. On July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday died at the age of 44. She passed not surrounded by family or comfort, but under surveillance, with only a few dollars to her name. Alcohol did not merely damage her organs, it amplified her isolation, accelerating a tragic end. Her death remains one of the most heartbreaking in music history. Billie Holiday gave the world a voice of truth, but alcohol took from her the peace and protection she never received in life. Her story endures as both cultural triumph and human tragedy. Esther Phillips. Esther Phillips, widely known as Little Esther, was one of the most resilient voices in American R&B, soul, and jazz. She tasted fame at a very young age, topping charts before most artists even found their identity. Her voice carried vulnerability, grit, and lived experience, qualities that made her music deeply human. Yet behind the applause was a private struggle that followed her for decades. Alcohol dependency that slowly dismantled her body long after her career began to recover. Phillips battled substance abuse early, including heroin, but unlike many of her peers, she fought her way back. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, she staged an impressive comeback, earning Grammy recognition and critical praise. On the surface, it appeared she had conquered her demons. However, alcohol had already left irreversible damage. Gin, which she reportedly consumed regularly for years, quietly destroyed her liver and kidneys while she continued to perform under immense pressure. In early 1984, her health visibly declined. She appeared jaundiced, frail, and exhausted, yet continued working, determined not to lose momentum again. Fans interpreted her appearance as fatigue from touring, unaware her organs were failing. On August 7, 1984, Esther Phillips died at Harbor UCLA Medical Center at age 48. The cause was organ failure, with long-term alcohol abuse identified as a primary contributor. Her death was especially tragic because it arrived just as she reclaimed her place in music history. Alcohol did not end her life in one reckless night. It dismantled her survival over years. Esther Phillips' story exposes a cruel truth. Recovery and fame does not erase physical consequences. The applause returned, but her body never recovered. Her legacy stands as both inspiration and warning. Talent can rise again, but alcohol's damage often waits patiently for the final act. Clyde McPhatter. Clyde McPhatter was one of the most influential tenor voices in American soul music, shaping the sound of R&B long before it entered the mainstream. As the lead singer of the Drifters, his soaring vocals helped define an era and open doors for Black artists in popular music. Yet when the spotlight faded, alcohol stepped in to fill the void left by abandonment, financial strain, and industry neglect. After leaving the Drifters, McPhatter struggled to maintain commercial success. Smaller venues replaced grand stages, and inconsistent income created mounting stress. Bourbon became his refuge. What began as a coping mechanism turned into a daily dependency that slowly dismantled his health. Alcohol numbed his disappointment, but it also ravaged his internal organs without mercy. By early 1972, Clyde's condition was dire. He suffered severe abdominal pain, jaundice, and extreme weight loss. Doctors confirmed his liver was failing, his kidneys were damaged, and his heart had weakened beyond repair. Hospitalized for weeks, he lay isolated, largely forgotten by the industry that once celebrated him. On June 13, 1972, Clyde McPhatter died at just 39 years old. His death was not sudden. It was the endpoint of prolonged deterioration. Alcohol did not just destroy his body, it erased his safety net, relationships, and stability. McPhatter's story reflects the darker side of musical fame in mid-century America, where pioneers were often discarded once profits declined. His voice lives on in timeless recordings, but his life serves as a somber reminder. Alcohol can quietly outlast applause, ambition, and even genius. Big Mama Thornton. Big Mama Thornton was a force of nature. Her voice was raw, commanding, and unapologetically powerful. She recorded Hound Dog years before it became a global hit through Elvis Presley, yet she never received the recognition or financial reward her talent deserved. The industry profited from her sound, then left her behind, pushing her toward alcohol as a means of survival. Thornton spent her later years performing in small clubs for modest pay. With limited opportunities and growing bitterness toward an exploitative industry, she turned increasingly to hard liquor. Alcohol became both comfort and companion, numbing years of disappointment and economic hardship. Unlike sudden overdose cases, her decline was slow and relentless. By the early 1980s, her liver was severely damaged. Years of heavy drinking had destroyed its ability to function. On July 25, 1984, Big Mama Thornton was found dead in a rundown boarding house in Los Angeles. She died alone, in poverty, from liver failure linked directly to chronic alcoholism. There was no grand farewell, no industry tribute at the time, only silence. Her death highlighted a painful pattern. Black pioneers often carried the weight of cultural progress without protection or long-term support. Alcohol did not simply end Big Mama Thornton's life. It filled the space left by neglect and injustice. Today, her influence is undeniable, but her ending remains a stark warning about how easily legends can be discarded and how alcohol patiently finishes what exploitation begins. Lexii Alijai. Lexii Alijai was not a legend yet, but she was clearly on the path to becoming one. Born Alexandria Layla Alijai Lynch, she emerged as a rare voice in modern hip-hop and R&B, introspective, poetic, and emotionally fearless. Her breakout collaboration, Jealous, with Kehlani positioned her as one of the most promising young artists of her generation. Unlike many viral stars, Lexii built her reputation on substance, not shock. But behind her artistic sensitivity was a young woman navigating immense pressure far too early. On January 1st, 2020, just hours after celebrating New Year's Eve, Lexii was found unresponsive in her Minneapolis hotel room. She had just turned 22. Authorities later confirmed that her death resulted from an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, with alcohol acting as a critical contributing factor. Medical experts are clear. Alcohol and fentanyl together form a lethal combination. Alcohol suppresses breathing and awareness, while fentanyl, up to 50 times stronger than heroin, can stop respiration entirely. Lexii did not die from recklessness, but from a moment of vulnerability common in an industry that rarely protects its youngest talents. Her passing shocked the music community because it shattered the illusion that success equals safety. Lexii was educated, self-aware, and surrounded by opportunity, yet still exposed to the same dangers that have haunted generations of artists before her. She left behind unreleased music, grieving fans, and a haunting reminder: substance abuse does not discriminate by age or talent. Lexii Alijai's death was not the fall of a star who burned out, but the silencing of a voice that never had the chance to fully rise. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes was the creative heartbeat of TLC, one of the most successful female groups in music history. With over 65 million records sold worldwide, TLC reshaped R&B and pop culture in the 1990s. And Left Eye's sharp lyricism, fearless individuality, and spiritual curiosity set her apart. Yet fame never settled comfortably on her shoulders. Lisa was outspoken about her internal struggles, often describing herself as searching for balance, meaning, and peace. In April 2002, she traveled to Honduras seeking spiritual clarity and healing. What was meant to be a retreat became a tragedy. On April 25, 2002, Lisa died in a violent car crash in La Ceiba, Honduras. She was driving an SUV at high speed after consuming alcohol. Toxicology reports later confirmed her blood alcohol level exceeded the legal limit. Not wearing a seatbelt, she was ejected from the vehicle and died instantly. She was 30 years old. Unlike many celebrity deaths shrouded in mystery, the facts here are painfully clear. Alcohol impaired her judgment and reaction time. This was not an assassination, not fate, not destiny. It was a preventable accident. What makes Lisa's death especially haunting is that much of her final days were captured on camera for a documentary. Viewers later watched a woman deeply reflective, aware of her flaws, and openly wrestling with personal demons. Alcohol did not define her life, but in one moment, it ended it. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes remains a symbol of brilliance, complexity, and lost potential. A reminder that even self-aware artists are not immune to dangerous choices. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston possessed one of the most extraordinary voices ever recorded. With over 200 million records sold, 6 Grammy Awards, and a vocal range that redefined modern R&B and pop, she stood as a global icon. Her voice symbolized strength, clarity, and emotional purity, yet her private life told a far more fragile story. On February 11, 2012, Whitney was found submerged in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, just hours before a major Grammy-related event. The world initially believed she died from a drug overdose. The coroner's report revealed something more complex and more chilling. Whitney's official cause of death was accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use as contributing factors. Alcohol played a crucial role by combining with cocaine to create cocaethylene, a highly toxic compound that intensifies strain on the heart and dramatically increases the risk of sudden unconsciousness. In simple terms, alcohol didn't act alone, but it triggered the chemical chain reaction that killed her. At the time of her death, Whitney was attempting a comeback. She was rehearsing, recording, and re-engaging with fans. But years of substance abuse had weakened her cardiovascular system. Her body could no longer survive what her voice once could. Whitney Houston did not die because she lacked talent, love, or opportunity. She died because addiction outpaced recovery. Her story stands as one of the most tragic examples of how alcohol, often minimized in celebrity culture, can quietly amplify deadly outcomes. She left behind a legacy unmatched, and a cautionary truth the industry still struggles to confront. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was not merely a musician. He was a seismic force that reshaped the language of modern music. Rising from poverty and racial barriers, Hendrix revolutionized rock with a guitar style no one had imagined before. Albums like Are You Experienced and performances such as Woodstock 1969 cemented him as a once-in-a-generation genius. Yet behind the innovation and global fame was a man crushed by exhaustion, expectation, and emotional isolation. By 1970, Hendrix was trapped in a relentless cycle of touring, legal disputes, and creative pressure. Alcohol became a routine companion rather than an occasional indulgence. On the night of September 17, 1970, in London, Hendrix drank red wine and consumed 9 Vesperax sleeping tablets, a dose far beyond what the human body could tolerate. The combination of alcohol and powerful sedatives proved fatal. In the early hours of September 18th, he vomited while unconscious, his reflexes suppressed by intoxication. Unable to awaken or protect his airway, he suffocated. Medical reports confirmed death by asphyxiation caused by barbiturate intoxication compounded by alcohol. There was no dramatic collapse on stage, no overdose spectacle, only a silent, preventable end. Hendrix was just 27, already a legend, yet still searching for peace. His death became one of the earliest symbols of how alcohol, normalized in the culture of fame, can magnify vulnerability rather than soothe it. Hendrix did not drink to celebrate excess. He drank to slow a life moving too fast. The tragedy lies not only in his loss, but in how quietly it happened, while the world still believed genius was indestructible. Dinah Washington. Dinah Washington, crowned the Queen of the Blues, possessed one of the most expressive voices in American music history. Her recordings bridged jazz, blues, and R&B, earning her chart success and critical acclaim throughout the 1950s and early 1960s. Yet beneath the glamour, Washington lived under intense personal and professional pressure, battling insecurity and physical self-image in an industry that scrutinized women relentlessly. In her final years, Dinah relied on prescription diet pills containing amphetamines to maintain her weight, common at the time but medically dangerous. Alcohol was also a frequent presence in her daily life, used to unwind after performances and social obligations. On the night of December 13, 1963, she hosted a small gathering at her Detroit home. Friends left believing it was an ordinary evening. Hours later, Washington combined alcohol with prescription medications. The interaction between amphetamines and alcohol overstimulated her cardiovascular system, triggering fatal cardiac arrhythmia. She was found unresponsive by her husband in the early morning of December 14th and pronounced dead shortly after. The official cause of death was acute barbiturate and alcohol intoxication. Dinah Washington died at 39, at the height of her career, not from a prolonged illness, but from a chemical imbalance her body could not survive. Her death highlighted the hidden dangers of socially accepted substances, especially when paired with medical misuse and unaddressed psychological stress. Her legacy endures through her recordings, but her story remains a sobering reminder that success offers no immunity from self-destructive coping mechanisms. Alcohol did not define Dinah Washington's talent, but it amplified vulnerabilities that ultimately silenced one of the most powerful voices of her era, David Ruffin. David Ruffin's voice was the emotional backbone of the Temptations' golden era. With hits like My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Ruffin helped shape Motown's global sound and define male soul vocals for generations. On stage, he was electrifying. Off stage, he battled addiction, financial instability, and unresolved trauma tied to sudden fame. By the late 1980s, Ruffin's struggles with substance abuse had intensified. Alcohol and cocaine were no longer occasional indulgences, but daily dependencies. On the night of May 31st, 1991, Ruffin attended a party in Philadelphia where heavy drinking and cocaine use continued for hours. Witnesses later described uncontrolled consumption without rest or restraint. In the early morning of June 1st, Ruffin collapsed. He was rushed to the University of Pennsylvania hospital where doctors attempted resuscitation. He was pronounced dead at age 50. Toxicology reports confirmed a fatal overdose caused by cocaine, with alcohol significantly contributing by increasing cardiovascular stress and toxicity. The combination destabilized his heart rhythm, leading to sudden cardiac failure. Ruffin's death was not instantaneous fame tragedy, but the end of a long decline fueled by untreated addiction. Despite efforts to revive his solo career, alcohol repeatedly undermined his health, discipline, and judgment. David Ruffin did not die because he lacked talent or opportunity. He died because the pressures of fame met substances that promised relief but delivered destruction. His voice remains immortal, but his life stands as a cautionary tale of how alcohol, when normalized and ignored, can quietly dismantle even the brightest stars. These were not reckless strangers. They were legends, voices that shaped generations, souls that carried Black music to the world. Yet alcohol didn't destroy them overnight. It worked patiently, year after year, disguised as relief, celebration, or survival. The industry applauded their talent, but ignored their pain. So here's the question. Should we blame personal choices or a system that profits while artists self-destruct? If even icons like Natalie Cole, Whitney Houston, and Billie Holiday couldn't escape this cycle, what does that say about fame itself? Share your thoughts below, join the debate, and subscribe to Black Excellence Legends for more untold truths behind the spotlight.